So it is important that in the FSP, we've got experience in younger generations, and not merely defined by age, although a lot of times it works out that way, but that we work together in a symbiotic relationship. Veterans have a huge responsibility to pass on the best of Marxist ideology and Leninist organizational principles, to orient young people to look outward, that is, to help them make the connections from their young egos, their personal oppressions, to the international working class and its critical role of being the prime historic agency for social change. Sometimes for us older vets, it's remembering our own youth and how quickly we changed. I was brought up a Catholic all the way through 1 year of a Catholic women's college, and at 20 I dropped the church like a hot potato. By the time I was hired as a lecturer in the Educational Opportunity Program, right on the heels of the Third World student strikes in the fall of '69, it took only one semester for all of us EOP lecturers to decide that we were revolutionaries. We only needed to recognize that for the students of color who never dreamt that they would find themselves on a college campus, they had, like us, absolutely no idea of the contributions people of color had made to American history. And that was only the first big lie, right? So there were many more to come that we all became aware of. We thought it only simple logic that students could take responsibility for their own education, to decide their own curriculum, to hire faculty and staff, to organize for an autonomous third world college. I taught as a lecturer for 33 years, and my students, who generally ranged from about 18 to 27 years old, stayed about the same age as I aged and retired at 62. And I never lost faith in the ability of youth to be the fastest learners with the energy to put into practice what they had learned, out of the classrooms and onto the campus and hallways and into the streets. Trotsky says that college campuses are incubating centers of organized revolt. The resurgence of the student movement in public education is something that Nancy and Tony will talk about later on. In the FSP, our perspective has been to, as Trotsky says, to look to the youth and the women. In the transitional program, he says, when a program or an organization wears out, the generation which carried it on its shoulders wears out with it. The movement is revitalized by the youth who are free of responsibility for the past. The Fourth International pays particular attention to the young generation of the proletariat. All of its policies strive to inspire the youth with belief in its own strength and in the future. Only the fresh enthusiasm and aggressive spirit of the youth can guarantee the preliminary successes in the struggle. Only these successes can return the best elements of the older generation to the road of revolution. Thus it was, thus it will be. When experienced comrades work with youth, it's a joy to see how Trotskyism and Marxism, even Rias's Marx for Beginners, continually renews itself as younger folk take on theory with new eyes. We veterans are renewed and invigorated. The patriarchal monogamous nuclear family is the biggest oppressor of youth. And so we ask, why does queer youth, why are they so militant in all the social movements? Well, it's because queer youth and young women notice sexism and heterosexism in the home. They've been outsiders since always. They know what injustice and equality are. Many have already experienced violence in the home. In many homes, too, moreover, authoritarianism reigns supreme. Capitalism despises youth except as consumers, and in this arena, youth reigns supreme. Hollywood films are dedicated to 14-year-old boys, and little girls are bombarded by corporate pedophilia, sexualizing them at such early ages. So when youth begin to understand Marxism, they cast off parental and capitalist educational authoritarianism and find new freedoms and get challenged by Leninist organization, especially the discipline of democratic centralism, which Norma will talk about in a minute, where they will find real democracy. At our FSP University, youth will find Bolshevik organization and discipline, political maturity, and the highest level of theoretical understanding. With new consciousness, socialist feminist youth can take the lead in organizing and recruiting in high schools and fight with them for their rights. We can recruit by coordinating activities with other sections of the anti-capitalist struggle on the campuses and at the workplace. Today's economic crisis of capitalism and chronic unemployment of youth, especially youth of color, provides us with extraordinary opportunities to win youth to our side. The economic contradictions of imperialism are the underlying source of the social explosiveness of our era. The gap between rich and poor grows. Moreover, youth can organize with the unemployed. Veterans can help with political clarity and theoretical training and teach Trotsky's correct line of struggle. We can teach the superiority of the Trotskyist movement and sound Marxist foundations to lead the working class to victory. The most conscious veterans can equip youth for the greater task of winning the allegiance of the most intelligent and devoted activists. They will then be called upon to advance world revolution. Where experienced comrades may be slower at grasping and using, the new digital technology, our younger comrades who have been brought up by these new inventions, they know it and they can teach us this every day, like the BlackBerry or the iPhone or working on Facebook and Twitter and all that high-tech stuff about HidMe's, Pandora, and Hulu.com. In my opinion, the gap is not between generations, but between oppression and freedom. The issues posed by youth are not generational ones as they respond to the major class conflicts of the day. Today's youth is pulled in many directions: narcissism, anarchism, social networking, petty bourgeois careerism. And when they come around, they come with some baggage because they've picked up patterns of survival no longer necessary in a combat party. Liberalism, wanting to get along with everybody and having a hard time giving criticism and tough love, or cultural nationalism, or the feminine mystique, or even feeling inferior because of their race, sex, sexuality, and their class. None of us is immune from the influences of capitalist exploitation and consumerist values. Veterans lead by engaging with youth, not talking at them, but listening, understanding and creating dialogue after dialogue. We need patience and understanding on both sides and a willingness to appreciate different rhythms and styles. We also lead by example. If we are opportunist, careerist, or bureaucratic, how will our new inexperienced comrades learn? But if we remain principled, acknowledge our mistakes, and change, if we follow our program, we will all flourish, recruit, and grow. In the FSP, it is in our own interest to develop the leadership of our younger generations. The radicalization of youth is of crucial importance to the Fourth International, says Trotsky. It poses a major challenge to the entire world Trotskyist movement, how to provide leadership for it and win the best of the new generation to the banner of what was the Fourth International, but which is today the Freedom Socialist Party. So I just want to say this, that to me, I think the most important thing in my work on campuses was the support of student democracy. And when I first started teaching in women's studies, we were all a collective of lecturers, and students participated in all the hiring and committees, the curriculum committees, the department meetings, etc. And that was like in the mid-'80s. And when I got fired in 1997 from SF State of Women's Studies, they weren't even having department meetings anymore. So I think for us, the importance is democracy and allowing the voices for everyone, but also with the guidance as well. Thank you very much.